All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome to our qRules training for today. I am Jimmy Risch. I'm one of the developers here at Qdabra. And the first topic we'll be presenting today is qRules' Submit to SharePoint list feature, along with some new features that we've added to that command recently. In particular, we've added the ability to explicitly define hierarchical relationships between the lists in the mapping tool. And one of the benefits this provides is that it allows you to easily define which columns in the child list should be populated with the IDs from parent lists. This used to be a bit more complicated and required some manual work. This goes along with some other modifications we've made to the batch import portion of the mapping tool. It allows some scenarios that weren't possible before the addition of this feature. So I hope you all find it useful, and with that I will hand the stage over to June, who will be presenting the topic as well as the demo.
Hello everyone. Hi, my name is June. Actually, I've only been with Qdabra for about 6 weeks, and this is my first time doing the training. So take it easy on me. And Ernesto, Jimmy, if you feel that I'm missing something, please feel free to interrupt anytime. So I'm gonna go ahead. Module 5 is about submit to SharePoint list. So the problem is that we are trying to overcome this is when we are submitting repeating data, InfoPath list forms do not support repeating data. And InfoPath forms cannot promote repeating data. Isn't this supposed to be SharePoint list forms do not support repeating data? Sorry, Jimmy.
This is right. InfoPath list forms don't support repeating data. You can only submit one item at a time. And then in a form library, you can promote columns, but you can't promote repeating columns unless you do some merge or first, one of these operations. So you don't really have a clear way of seeing that repeating data in a form library.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ernesto. So moving on. Okay, in this lab we will learn how to use the InfoPath to SharePoint list mapping tool to submit hierarchical data to multiple lists, and we will use submit to SharePoint list and refresh SharePoint list commands, and I'm going to show you how to delete attachments. So I'm going to show, on the next slide we have step 1. We only actually have 3 steps. So step 1 is you need to create a SharePoint list where our data will be stored upon submit. And we have to create a parent-child relationship among the lists. I'm going to show you later the list because I already pre-created it, so you don't have to do that yourselves. And here's the relationship that they're going to have. We're using the expense report template, so and it has 3 repeating nodes. So that's for listen all. So expense report, and underneath that expense report items, and under the expense report items we have expense report gifts and expense report entertainment. And second step is we're going to map our form fields to our SharePoint list columns. So first we'll add a SharePoint list ID, and we'll reference each repeating node. And so we will use this in. I'll show you where we will use this in our mapping. And next to that, we'll use the InfoPath SharePoint list tool. So we'll map your form fields to our list columns. And then we'll save our mapping as an XML file, and then we will use that XML file as a secondary data source in our template. And then the third step, we'll go and set up our info platform. Just we'll create a submit connections, another receive connection, we'll add a submit connection to the SharePoint list. Web service update these items. I'm just reading it. I'm just reading this out loud. Sorry. So then I receive connection to the add attachment method. And final part, we're going to create a rule to submit SharePoint list command, and another rule to refresh SharePoint list items, and then another rule to perform a SharePoint delete attachment operation. So I think it takes it's much better when we get into the lab. So, but before that, I'll just going to show you the definition of submit to SharePoint list and refresh SharePoint list item. So the submit to SharePoint list command requires that requires a mapping done. So and SharePoint list items it needs to be used in tandem with SharePoint submit to SharePoint list. All right, so I think it's better if we just go to the demo. Okay, so first I pre-created the list for you. So you have 4 lists. We're going to use the expense report list, expense report item, gift, and entertainment. So go into the expense report. If you can see, I already created all the columns. Let's take a look at these columns. And here we are, quite a few. But all right, then let's go to expense report item, which is going to be a child list of the expense report list. And we take a look at the columns. We have a lookup column, parent ID. So this parent ID looks up to expense report. All right, so where's the parent ID expense report? There it is. So it looks up to expense report and it gets the ID field. So and right, we have expense report item has 2 child lists, expense report gift and expense report entertainment. So the same, if we look at the list, we also have a parent ID field column that looks up to this time to expense report item. And that's the same for expense report entertainment. Parent ID that looks up to expense report. All right, that's clear. Let me show you the hierarchy again. So expense report items, and under the expense report items, we have two more child lists, expense report gifts and expense report entertainment. And where did we get that? Oh, let's open our form. All right, so expense report, all the non-repeating data. This is where we get our first list. So I think our first list includes all this. It will be mapped to all these non-repeating fields, right? And then we have underneath expense report, we have expense report item, and this is it. It's our first repeating node. And underneath that, we have these fields. So that's where we get the columns for. And the expense report attainment, same, and expense report gift right there. Okay, so next I'm going to show you the info path to the info path form to SharePoint list tool. Just a second, I think I haven't injected that to my. Give me like just a second here. All right. Okay, so I had to quit info path to install. Sorry, I just reinstalled qRules before this. Okay. I'm not boring anyone. Okay, done. Okay, I'll open the tool. Here we go. So we want to map our form fields to our SharePoint list columns. So we go to define mapping. All right. So first we need to attach our form. So mine's right here. All right, and then we need to paste in our target site URL. Which okay, just a second. Let me just get the URL somewhere in the log. Okay, I'll just paste that in. And click on SharePoint list. Get SharePoint list. So what we've done here is, first we specified our target SharePoint list URL, so target SharePoint site URL, sorry. So we can get a list of all the lists under that URL. So, and then we attach our forms. So in the SharePoint column, we can so we can get the schema, see, and we can map our fields to our columns. Okay, let's do that. So first, let's select expense report. That will be our top level mapping, right? And I suggest you check on use list name for submit. And this is not a repeating group. Okay, so but we'll specify our base path. Our base path is so top level node. And then we're going to add quite a few field mapping because we have a lot of columns and fields here. But we don't have to do everything just for the sake of the demo. So if you click on the drop down menu, SharePoint list column, you'll find all the columns that I created in our SharePoint list, expense report list. So we go with a name and click on that, and then we'll map it to this field name, right? And we do the same for other fields and columns. Employee ID, like our employee ID from our SharePoint column, and then click on this again, and I think I called that identification number, yeah. And then a few more, email address, job title, well, that's enough. You get it. So I'll add okay. I'll add. I don't need to add another one. Let's remove that. And click on show. And we're going to specify ID. And in this case, it's going to be SharePoint list ID. I think I skip a step here. You guys need to have a SharePoint list ID that reference to each repeating node. I'll just go back to the form. All right, just a second. Here we are. So the expense report template doesn't come with the SharePoint list ID. I just added this. So what you need to do here, it's in the lab anyway. What you need to do here is you need to right-click and add reference to each repeating node. So we look for our first node, which is item, and we click on OK. But as you can see, I've already done that because if you look at item, we already have a SharePoint list ID reference, right there. And I also did that for entertainment here, and I also did that for gifts. So showing you how to do that again, just right-click on SharePoint list ID, click on reference, and select the repeating node. Click on OK. So do that for each 3 repeating nodes. Next, going back to our tool. So this is the top level list. So here we are. Now we have a child list. Remember, expose support item, and so we're going to make a child mapping for that. Click on plus, so it adds a child mapping, and then we'll choose our list express support item. Now this time, data is from a repeating group, and I suggest you check on use list name for submit. And now we're going to select our base path from the schema, and our base path will be my item right here. And add a few form fields, right? Let's select our first SharePoint column, SharePoint list column. Let's use date, and then I'll map it to date. Description, map it to description. Guys, please raise your hand if you think I'm going too fast or too slow, or if my voice is not very clear. So let me know, please. Moving on, amount, category, right? And that's enough. I'm gonna add a few more fields. Okay, and I'm going to click on show options, right? So I'm gonna define the parent list parent-child relationships. So first, I'm gonna select ID, and ID does not require that it be mapped to our SharePoint list column, because that's going to be our SharePoint list ID right here. All right. Sorry, that's the wrong SharePoint list ID. I'm going to click on the reference that I created for item. There we are. Now we're going to specify our parent list ID, right? And it's going to be parent ID, the lookup column that I showed you earlier in SharePoint. Let's go back there again. So right here, expense report item, expense report item. Columns, and it's this one, right? So going back to our tool again, and you can also specify if field is a rich text. So we have a field here, additional info, looking at our form. Here it is, additional information. So it's not single line of text, so it's going to be rich text. So there you go. And additional info. Where's that? There it is. All right. So we are going to do the same for expense report gifts and expense report entertainment, which are childless expense report items. So we're going to create child mappings under expense report item. So there we go. Expense report gift, and might as well do this now. Expense report entertainment. So doing expense report entertainment first. Data is from a repeating group. Selecting our base path. Our second repeating node. People enter my person entertained. I think it's this one. Yep, this one. And add a few field marking. Right. Select our columns. Person name, person title, firm, and we're going to specify we're going to define our parent-child relationship. So first we go with parent ID, click on show options. So it doesn't matter which one you do first. And next ID, this is going to be that reference to SharePoint list ID. People, there you go. And let's do the last one, expense report gift. Recipient name. Please keep amount. Add a couple more for the parent-child relationship. Gift. Okay, recipient name, right? And keep amount. Okay, I think Jimmy, am I taking too much time already? I think we have to give them enough time to do the lab, right?
Is this the last list that you're mapping?
Yes, this is the last list I'm mapping, and then I think after this they can start doing the lab. I'll be doing the lab with them.
Okay. So I guess just in words, give a quick overview of what the remaining high-level items will be in this lab.
Okay. So I'll just show them. I'll just save the qRules mapping. So I'm gonna save this as mapping. I don't want to overwrite the one I created earlier, so I'm just gonna pull this. I'm gonna put this in somewhere else. Okay. So that's mapping. Okay.
So you can just describe. Jen, you can just describe what the remaining steps are without actually carrying them out.
Okay. Okay. So remaining steps. Let's look at the. Let me show you the lab. All right. So I created a table of contents here earlier. So okay, here's what we will do in this lab. I'll show you how to do the first one. Create the matrix file, and then you create a new data connection to that XML file, right? And submit. Add the submit connection to the SharePoint list, web service update list items, and another receive connection to the SharePoint list, web service add attachment. And then we're going to use create a few rules using submit the SharePoint list, another rule using refresh SharePoint list command. And after that, we're going to perform a SharePoint delete attachment operation. So basically we'll be submitting items to multiple SharePoint lists. We'll be submitting data actually to multiple SharePoint lists, That's by creating a map, by mapping our form fields with our SharePoint list columns, and using that mapping we'll create a submit to SharePoint. We'll use the submit to SharePoint list command, all right, to submit and update data in our SharePoint list. And then that's pretty much it. So am I missing something, Jimmy? Sorry, Ernesto?
No, I wouldn't say so. So yes, everybody can go about starting the lab now. Bear in mind, you do not have to finish it before the next presentation begins. And if you get stuck following the steps or have any questions, you can feel free to contact us at any time at support@qdabra.com.
All right. Well, I hope you like that presentation. So Jimmy, I'm gonna mute myself now. I'm gonna do the lab with them.
Okay, sure thing. I see that we actually have a couple questions from the audience. The first question is, if you have a list that allows multiple content types, such as a workflow task list, is this going to cause a problem mapping or updating the list? I'm not sure what exactly you mean by multiple content types in the list, but I would believe that this would probably work. It simply adds items to the list and updates them as needed. Another question we have, does this work for external lists that are connected to an SQL Server database? The answer is, I believe that it does. The one limitation is that this will only work in browser forms that are running on the SharePoint server. It will not work on filler forms.
Hey everyone, I see some questions about audio and whether there's any sound. We were on a pause there to allow you to take a look at the lab and some of the steps there. I'm not sure that it's enough time to really step through the entire lab, but at least it gives you a chance to take a look at the lab on your own and see if you have any quick questions we can address. Of course, you can use some extra time after the call at your convenience to finish executing the lab, to try to really understand everything, and if you have any questions you can contact us through our support email, of course. It's 9:51 Pacific right now, so what I would suggest is that we move on to the next module. The next module should be pretty easy, and it should be a pretty quick demo as well. After that module, there are two more discussion topics. They're not really labs. There's no lab part per se. It's just discussion. So we can talk through those through that last module and through those two presentations with the rest of the time that we have today. So I apologize for cutting off your time here for the lab, but hopefully you have all the training material and can take a look at a convenient time. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to close the question panel. So if any questions come up after right now, I'm not really going to be looking at them. I'll ask that June and Jimmy pay attention in case there's anything urgent in the questions. And if I can ask June to make me the presenter, that would be great. Okay, hopefully my screen is showing now, and hopefully my audio is coming through loud and clear. And if it isn't, then please interrupt. This next module is called uniquely naming a form. And that might seem like something trivial or something easy, but you would be surprised at how often this comes up as an issue. And the reason is that when you submit a form, an XML form, to a SharePoint form library, no matter what version of SharePoint you're on, you need a unique name. You need a unique name that you can come back and overwrite the existing XML, number one, without creating a duplicate, and number two, without accidentally overwriting a different XML. So it becomes really important. You're going to notice that when you create a data connection in InfoPath that submits to a SharePoint form library, you have a checkbox that allows you to overwrite. That will tell InfoPath to overwrite if the file name already exists. So if you have a name that is truly unique, you're going to prevent all of these scenarios. You're going to prevent the duplication of XML forms. You're going to prevent the accidental overwriting of XML forms. And I know it seems a little trivial maybe, or a little simple, but it's actually kind of an important issue. So that's why we included it in this training. We have a command in qRules called generate GUID. GUIDs are not human readable. So it's not a text that you're going to be able to read and remember it so that you can come back and edit the form, right? It's too long, it's automatically generated, you're never going to remember it. The good thing about them is that they're unique. So if you need a unique form name, then this command is the number one solution that you'll find in qRules. It's not the only one, but it's the number one option that you'll find there. You basically execute generate GUID, you're going to get a result that is unique, and you use that as your form name and you're done. We're going to go through the lab. I'm going to go through the lab next, and I'm going to try to illustrate some of these concepts that I have talked about as far as to do an info path, to guarantee a unique form name. So this is what I was talking about a minute ago. If you come here to submit to a SharePoint form library, you have this option, allow override if file exists. So this is going to look at the file name. So if you just leave the file name as form and check this, you're only going to ever have one XML in your form library, and it's always going to be called form, and it's always going to be overwritten. If you use something like the now formula, now always recalculates. So whenever you submit, that's a now, and then if you edit that form a day later, that's a new now, that's a new form name, so you get a new form. So in this scenario, you would never get an overwrite because you're always recalculating the timestamp. If you use something like concat, there's a username function in here that sometimes gets used. So if you use concat username today, what's that formula? It doesn't like my formula. Oh, it's my format here. Sorry, it's my concat. That's not accepted. There we go. So if you use something like this, what you're doing is you're concatenating the current user name of the person who's logged in, adding a dash in between, and then using today's timestamp. That's better than using some other options, but this assumes that every username will always have one form per day. So if you submitted a form earlier today, you're going to be overriding that form. You won't get another form. Okay, so what we're going to do in this lab is we're going to illustrate this. And this is a short lab. I'll go to the training site. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a form library just so I don't step on anything that's been done so far. And I'll call this module 8. I'll put my name on it so nobody mistakes this for anything else. So now that I have a form library, I can come here and actually set up my data connection to submit. So I'm going to submit to a document, a form library. There's my URL, and I need to define my form name. So let's leave it like this. This is incorrect, of course, but I'm going to leave it like that for now. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you that you can add a form name field in your main data source, and you can actually use this in your submit data connection that we just set up. So instead of trying to calculate some formula here, or instead of typing something in here, you can just point this data connection to that form name, and you can allow overwrites. So as long as that field called form name stores your form name and it doesn't change, then you're all set. So this part of the task is done. We have the data connection, and it is referring to this node as its form name. So now we have to choose, how do we set the form name? So we're going to do a couple of things here, time depending. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the qRules command that I just talked about. And I apologize ahead of time that the lab, I'm not following the lab 100% step by step, but it's going to be very similar, so don't worry. There's just a few, there's just some tiny little discrepancies, but the idea is the same. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a rule that executes on load. I'm assuming that you've heard about the finished loading node, and if you haven't, I'll quickly say that this is a node that is equal to false by default as the InfoPath form is loading. When it finishes loading, this node switches to true. So what I mean by that is that the qRule DLL has finished loading. Everything that's needed for qRules is ready to go when this node switches to true. So whenever we add an action here, we try to condition it on finished loading is equal to true, because that tells us that qRules is ready to go. So we could add a rule here that sets our form name. And we can come here and execute the command that we just talked about in the slides, which is called generate GUID. Now generate GUID has a few options, not too many. It's not a confusing command. It just has a few options here for the format. So we're going to use the format, and you can refer to the command guide to learn about the other formats. And we're going to get a result out of that, and then we're just going to set the form name in the main data source to the result of qRules. And that's it. That's all we have to do. But there's a problem here. And the problem here is I'll come to that in a minute. When the problem here is that when you have this rule set up like this, it's going to execute every time that the form opens. So if you submit it today and you come back tomorrow, it's going to generate a new form name. So we need an additional condition here, and the condition is usually looking at whether the form name is blank or not. So you know that when the form is originally created, the form name is blank because we haven't filled it out. So that way we put this condition here. If the form name is blank, then we execute the command and we set the form name. When the form is reopened tomorrow or next week, the form name is not blank, so this action never executes. This rule does not execute. So you don't overwrite your form name. And it's really that easy. That's it. That's all we have to do. Let's make sure that our submit button is set up correctly. Yep, that looks fine. And I'll just save that and publish it. Jimmy, Jimmy or June, there was a question about opening some of the training material. If you could look at that question while I'm publishing this, that would be great. So I'm just going to walk through this publishing wizard. I'm sure you've seen this before, so there isn't much of a novelty here. The novelty will be in the next portion when we admin deploy. Okay. That's interesting. I don't understand that message. Because I've obviously used this site before. Okay, finally. Sorry for the delay there. So this is a pretty simple form. Shouldn't take too long to fill it out. I don't know why it's taking so long to load it. There we go. Hello world. Okay. So there's my new form, and as you can see, it has a GUID as its name. That's not human readable. It's just an ID that's guaranteed to be unique, and that's automatically generated by qRules. So it makes your life a little easier. It guarantees that it's unique, but it's really not. It's not human readable, and it's not really meaningful. So users aren't really going to know what's going on. But there are other ways to work around this. So I'll just move on to the next portion of the lab, which is just to show a different qRules command. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this same form, so I don't have to create a new form. I'm just going to disable that rule and just create a new one. So I'll call this set form name using an ID, and the new one will be set form name using a key. The condition doesn't really change. The condition is the same because we're still looking for finished loading to have finished, and we're looking for the form name to be blank. And instead of using the generate GUID command, we're going to use a command called get full date time. And again, I'll refer you to the documentation for all the options here, but I'm going to use a very specific format here. And the reason is I want to get as specific as possible. So I'm getting the month, the day, the year, the hour, the minute, the second, and I forget what FFF is. But anyway, this is pretty specific. You can imagine that you're not going to have that many submits happen simultaneously. So we're going to generate that, but then before we set the form name, we're actually going to make this even more of a unique key by using the form name. So I'm going to use expense report because I think that's been used in most of the modules so far. So I'm going to use the form name. I'm going to use the username of the person who's currently logged in. And I'm also going to use the result. And the result is this format for the full date time. So why not use now? You can use now. Now gives you a very specific format that InfoPath, it's hard-coded into InfoPath. That's the good thing about get full date time. In qRules, you can manipulate that format to look however you would like it to look. This is especially helpful if you need to display that in a certain way, right? You don't want to conform to the way that InfoPath is showing it to you. So it's just another option in your arsenal. And that's it, right? So we're doing pretty much the same thing in both of these, right? In the first one, we're using an ID. We're calling generate GUID. In the second one, we're generating a key by using get full date time, and we're also incorporating the form name and the username. So these aren't too different one from another. The most important lesson in all of this is that you have a name, a form name that is unique. You have a form name that there's pretty much zero chance of an accidental override happening. So I will republish that form. And this will take a minute. And I'll open that form in the browser, and I'll just submit another test here just to show you the name. So you see it has the form name that I specified, and then it has the username. Unfortunately, the user is coming through in this odd format with the domain. So we could do some work here to strip out the domain. That's not too difficult, but it's also not required. And then we have the date time in the format that we specified. And again, if you need to use a different format, the qRules command will allow you to use other formats. And that's really it. I think the takeaway here is there are many ways to define a unique name, whether you use an ID, whether you use a key, whether you use qRules or not. Just be really careful about this. Think about whether the users need to have a readable name, a readable form name. If the readable form name doesn't matter, then a GUID is probably your best option. If you need a readable GUID, then you have things like the form name, the username, the timestamp that are all useful. Yeah, and that's really it. We only have about 15 minutes left, so I think I need to pick up the pace a little. I get a little too wordy. So we've been through all of this. The next module, Module 9, there's really not much of a lab here to execute. It's just a conversation about, best practices when you're using qRules in the browser. And the number one thing is to make sure that you're a site collection administrator. And if you're not, the form isn't going to publish. And I do have a demo prepared for that, a quick and easy demo. Let me see if I remember. There's a site. I worked on a site yesterday that I'm not a site collection admin, because I want to show you this, because this comes up quite often, especially when working on a new site. You get this sort of thing. The form cannot be published. Only site collection administrators can publish sandbox solutions. The reason I'm using this form, this specific form, if you look at the header here, the bar at the top, it says test with code. This is a form with some really simple custom code that I added. When you try to publish the form with qRules, you may or may not get this message. If you're having issues publishing a form with qRules, sometimes I recommend you try publishing a form with code instead, and that sometimes gives us more information about what the error message may be. So that's why I'm doing this, just to show you that this is a really good good error message, because it tells you exactly what the problem is. So anyway. Another issue that we see commonly is that the site, especially a new site, doesn't have the sandbox service enabled. Once it's enabled, then you don't have to worry about that going forward, of course. Another common issue encountered in browser forms are the postback settings on your controls. If you're calling a qRules command from a specific control, you should set the postback settings to always. And the postback settings are available when you go to the control properties under browser forms. Not just for buttons, but for any other control, you'll have that option. If the control is calling a rule that executes a qRules command, set it to always. That's just a best practice so you don't get rules that don't fire. If you are getting rules that don't fire, or if you're getting any sort of qRules failure, I'm sure it's been mentioned before, but I'll mention it again. Check the error, success, and result notes. If you get an error, then that's great. That's going to tell you what's going on and why it's failing. If you don't get an error, if you don't get success, if you don't get a result, then qRules isn't even executing, right? And that might mean that the postback setting, for example, is not set to always. So it's always a good idea as you're developing the form, just keep result, error, and success on the canvas. So those are some general pieces of advice for browser forms. To be more specific, you have to be careful about changes in behavior between the browser and the client. One of the things that you might encounter is event bubbling. That means that when you have a change in a secondary data source, it might cause other rules to fire. And then those rules might fire and they might kick off some other rules. So you have this chain reaction of rules executing, and I've seen that called event bubbling. One example that I can think of is if you're doing a technique that inserts data from a secondary data source into the main data source, and you also want to sort that data after it's been inserted, you might get event bubbling, because for every insert you kick off a sort, and then for the next insert you kick off another sort. So I've seen some weird things there where you have to condition the sort to only happen at the end, after all the inserts have happened. Another change in behavior between the browser and the client is to not use filters on repeating tables. This isn't here, but it's listed in the Word document. Instead of using filters, use conditional formatting. Yeah, the Word document has a couple of links that you can check out for some of these issues. I think the main thing to think about is you want to, as painful as it is to keep publishing to the browser and testing, you really want to do that because if you keep previewing in client, you're not really getting the results. You're not really guaranteed that what you see in preview is what you're going to get in the browser. That's the challenge here. So that's why the first piece of advice on this slide is test early and test often. As painful as it is, keep publishing your form to the browser. Keep making sure that everything you're designing Is browser compatible? Look at the design checker. And if you notice that something you just did caused a browser incompatibility, then it's easy enough to just say, okay, what's the last thing that I did? I'll just back that out. If you work on your form for hours and hours and hours, then you may not remember what is actually breaking the form. A couple last things here to mention is be careful about how much load you place on finished loading or on form load. If you have large queries or a lot of rules, you might cause some timeouts in the browser forms. And then finally, be careful with copying and pasting controls. I have seen a lot of issues with this. InfoPath 2010 and 2013 allow you to copy rules, and that's probably safer than copying an entire control. Copying the entire control, I've seen issues come about, so I would recommend being careful with that. And as I mentioned, the Word document has a lot of links that you can read more about best practices for browser forms, common issues, solutions. So be sure to check out that Word document. If it's not on the site, let us know. The final little piece here, we have about 8 minutes left. I think that should be fine. We have been publishing to the sandbox mostly, or completely in this training module. But there's always the option of admin approving a form, so I just wanted to take these last few minutes to walk through that. Why would you need to do this? One of the most common reasons why is email data connections. You can't have those in the sandbox. So then you have to admin deploy the form. Also, if you're in SharePoint 2007, you're going to have to admin deploy qRules forms. There are a lot of reasons why you might need to admin approve, but those are just some of them. So I'll just dismiss this, and I'm going to use the same form because it's already up here. When you admin deploy a form, you're going to see the following option right here: administrator approved form template. So this is what we mean by admin deploy or admin publish. This doesn't really publish the form to the server. All this does is it stores it in your computer. So I'll call this qRules unique names, and I'll save it. And all this does is just really save a copy of that XSN, a published, a version of the XSN that's marked as published. So now, to make this template available in the browser, you have to go through SharePoint Central Admin for this. And hey, I guess if Jimmy's there, he can let me know what the central admin site for this is, because I don't remember. It must be QSHP. No, that's not it. Sorry, I need to connect to the VPN for this page to load. This is the central admin site for SharePoint. And depending on your environment, you might or might not have access to this. Just talk to your SharePoint administrator if you need to obtain access. And hopefully it'll load. Okay, so here's Central Admin. You want to go to General Application Settings. And within General Application Settings, you're going to find all of the settings for InfoPath Form Services, which is the service that displays your forms in the browser. So if you ever need to set up some parameters for InfoPath Form Services, this is where you would come as well. But what we want to do today is we want to upload a form template. So you would provide the file name of the form that we just published, and you click Upload, and this uploads the XSN into Central Admin. I'll give it a minute here to upload. Oh, it doesn't like it. Okay, well, I'll find another site. Okay, not loading. Okay, here we go. So again, General Application Settings, and then upload the form template. And I'll let this upload. The reason you saw that other message in the other server is because there is other work on that server using a different version of qRules. And when I tried to upload it, it generated a conflict. So typically you want to keep your forms. You're probably not going to run into the issue. You only have one version of qRules installed on your computer, so all of your forms are going to have that version. But in our case, we may have different versions deployed all over the place. So that's what's happening on that other server. And this server seems extremely slow. Oh, getting the same thing. Different version of qRules. Okay, well, I have a minute left. So I apologize about this. The step-by-step on publishing the admin deploy template is in Module 9. There are steps for 2010 and for SharePoint 2010. And the steps are going to be pretty similar to other versions of SharePoint. And it's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, just let us know. And I guess that brings us to the end of the training for now. So to summarize what we've discussed today, June talked about submit to SharePoint lists. And that's one of the most commonly requested features in qRules. So if you're interested in that, try out the modules and let us know if you have any questions on that. We talked about uniquely naming a form, which was pretty simple and pretty straightforward. But check out the module, and if you have questions or need advice on how to name your form, let us know. Then we talked about some best practices for browser forms. And then we tried to admin publish even though the servers did not cooperate with me. But the steps are in Module 9, and if you ever need to admin deploy a form, you should be able to follow those steps. Let me see if there are any questions here. If we were to update qRules, do we have to re-inject all our forms and republish? This is the key here is if a new qRules version is launched and you need a feature or you need a fix that's in that new version, then yes, by all means, re-inject your forms and republish them. I wouldn't suggest just blindly, oh, there's a new version, so I'll just go re-inject all my forms. Make it a conscious choice that you need one of the new features, you need one of the new fixes, and then publish and update your forms and republish them. The reason I mention all of your forms is that so you don't get this error that I was just seeing, where if you have different qRules versions on your server, you might run into this issue in central admin. You won't see that issue if you're sandbox publishing. Right, so if you're sandbox publishing, you're not going to have an issue with different versions of qRules. It's only when you have this admin deploy scenario you're going to get into this situation where SharePoint might complain that it has these different DLLs for qRules. So the way to avoid that is just re-inject all of the forms. In a way, that's also good, because if you ever say that you have eight forms that use qRules, and you need help with one of them, then you at least know that you're up to that version on all of them. There's no question about, oh, I have a form that's 4.2 and a form that's 6.1 and a form that's 5.1. You don't get into that scenario. You're going to have all your forms up to the same version. So to summarize, I don't think you need to immediately upgrade every time there's a new version. I do think you need to keep your forms all on the same version, just to avoid any potential issues. There was a question earlier about from BJ about opening the forms. Yeah, I don't know. I'll check that out in a minute. Basically, you just download the form and then right-click on design. That's really all I know what to say at the moment. Okay, well, we've run out of time and exceeded the time, unfortunately. So I'll say the following. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, contact us through our support email, support@qdabra.com. Try out the labs, try out the modules, check out the slides, and send us your feedback. And thank you for attending, and we hope to see you again soon.